morning, Steve Halkin Napier. Welcome to the Oracle of the Self. Today is interpretation session number 2 for our exploration number 4, which was about overcoming overwhelm. And last time around, I think we got to the first 5 or so of the activities. If you guys have not listened to the first part, I would encourage you to do so because we do a lot of explanation about what you're looking at as far as your change grid results are concerned and that. So that stuff is there. So I just want to jump right into wherever it is we left off. So this is about staying on track. Now, again, almost all of you have been around the change grid long enough to understand the general energy that would best support you in doing a particular activity. So if I want you to stay on track, just think of that as a verb, stay on track, resolve that overwhelm. Does that feel like it needs primarily a driver kind of an energy, an expressive, an amiable, or an analytical kind of energy? What energy would
Driver.
help you stay on track?
Driver.
It's a driver energy. It's a driver energy. Now, we'll do a deeper dive to find out what the secondary energy would be, but ultimately, I'm happy if you guys are in that driver quadrant someplace. So let's go ahead and look at it again. Every time someone fills it out, this list gets updated. You guys are reminded again, you can always put in a fake name. Don't worry about that. You just have to give us your legit email address if you want your results. So I'm going to click on view the change grid. And this is where you guys are as far as that staying on track to resolve the overwhelm is concerned. Now, ideally, I said it's just 9-9. I don't need you to be way out grid as a driven driver kind of type. Just a nice balanced driver energy could very well help you guys to stay on track. We do have a couple of people floating around. So individual F. That's Sally. I don't know if Sally's on the call. Okay. But for whatever reason, Sally views her level of ability to do that as a bit less. Well, 2 points less than everybody else, at least 2 points less than everybody else. And so this could very well be more of a training issue where we'd have to look at this activity and say, well, what kinds of tools would you use to stay on track to resolve the overwhelm? Is it about making a list? Is it about pulling out a calendar and scheduling appointments for stuff to get done? What is it that needs to get done and, to be able to stay on track? I mean, I guess I'm babbling, but I'm going like, I can't stay on track until I know the track. And so, where's this track? Where's this process we're following? Where's this procedure, this master list, whatever? And then once I know that, I can go, now how am I going to stay on it? So, if you're having difficulty staying on track because you don't have a track, then obviously there is some learning that would need to happen in order to close that part of the gap. Now, one thing I will tell you is that there is a great frequency at which or during which people will notice that their perceived challenge goes down when they notice their perceived ability goes up. All right, so soak in that for just a second. So if you're feeling as far upgrid as Sally is about this particular activity, recognize that if her perceived ability was impacted and improved by 1 point or 2 points, would it feel normal to you that that might take the edge off that challenge rating of an 11 of all things? I'm not saying it's going to lower it down to a 2, but might it take the edge off of some of that perceived challenge? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Certainly might.
It certainly might. Now, that's not a cause and effect relationship always. There's no, we got plenty of evidence to say that just because ability goes up doesn't make challenge go down. And just because the challenge goes down doesn't mean that you did something to impact your ability to make your, you know what I mean? They're independent perceptions, but there are some patterns that we can sometimes identify. So I would say to you that if I wanted to help Sally, or again, this is for all of you, this is the Oracle of the Self, you need to be able to do this stuff yourself. You got to ask yourself, should I move Sally by working with her perception of challenge and getting her to see that it's not as challenging as she thinks it is? It's, do those kinds of things? Or should I put my energy into helping her explore and boost her perceived ability? What would you think you would do for yourself or for someone else in this situation? Focus on lowering perceived challenge, increasing perceived ability, or what special combo for you? Anybody?
I would think lowering the challenge would be a little bit more helpful. It's pretty high, and she's got it at an 11, so that would seem to me to scream to be the most important factor.
Yeah, and now how far would you want to lower? Obviously, we've said the ideal location would be a challenge of 9. She's reporting a challenge of 11. So, is there a message I might be able to give someone that in and of itself could lower their level of productive tension around that particular activity?
Well, part
Well,
of it might be if she has a perception that if that's really a perception and not reality,
yes.
then you could also lower the challenge and increase the ability.
That's right. That's right. And so if we look at what the downgrade maneuvers are overall, they're a combination of things that reduce perceived challenge and increase perceived ability. And so just as a quick review, the downgrade maneuvers are normalize, simplify, restore resources, and add resources. And so certainly if I'm talking about normalizing something, that's really working with challenge more than it is with ability. When I say this is something that happens to everybody, this is not unusual at all. In fact, this was rather predictable. When you find out it's kind of normal, your tension will go down or your perceived challenge will go down. But, we're just trying to take the edge off, get you closer to that 9 perceived challenge before we get into the real developmental work that needs to be done. So I said, normalize, simplify is about enhancing your ability to do something, but breaking it into smaller, more manageable pieces. Restore resources is really more about ability than challenge. But when I restore a resource, what I'm doing is reminding you of the knowledge, the skill, the experience that you already have, and just letting you know you might not have pulled it into play in a long way, but it's still right there. And so letting you know that you are actually surrounded by all sorts of resources that you can pull into play again, but it might have been so long that you kind of forgot they were even there. And so restoring the resource will boost your perceived ability. And by the way, it will also reduce your perceived challenge because you've done it before. There's that part of that restoration of resources is reminding you that you've experienced this before. So you've walked this before. So get the idea? So that would do that. The last one is add resources. Add resources is more about ability. So I'm giving you new tools, new techniques, new insights, new knowledge, etc. So yeah, thoughts around employing downgrade maneuvers and which one's helping you do which? Nope, nope, nope.
I think the simplification is really the key to
Yeah.
this particular downgrade maneuver.
Tell us why.
Well, you can normalize the situation, but somebody in an 11 is going to have a great deal of resistance to normalization.
Mhm.
So you can normalize until you see a crack in the armor and then begin to simplify.
Yes. And so this again is that you guys have heard the little phrase about there's only one way to eat a whale, except Tom and Anj are vegetarians, so's Brian. So I don't know but there's only one way to eat um,
An
a
avocado.
an avocado. There you are, an avocado. One bite at a time. So it's the same kind of thing. We've got to be able to break the larger task down into some sort of smaller, more manageable sorts of activities to do that. So if we're going to try to eat the whale, got to do it one little step at a time and figure out what the process is. So I think you're right. Simplifying it is just about adding a little bit of structure, breaking it down into a few simple things that need to be done rather than one big overwhelming thing that we got to eat. Okay, anyway, so that's what I would kind of be saying as far as Sally is concerned. So for all of you guys, just again, remember that if you're ever this far away from an ideal situation, or you're noticing that you're not even plotting in the general energy of where it would be, you need to visit that particular activity or that particular individual about this particular activity to do that. Similarly, but not so much of an issue, is individual D. So that's Rhonda. She's not on the call as well. But Rhonda has reported a level of ability to do it as a 5, and the challenge, or rather, the level of ability is being an 8, and the challenge is being a 5. So she has a little bit more than double what the ability needs to be in order to do that, or a little less than double what the ability needs to be to meet that kind of challenge. Now, I'm not surprised. We know Rhonda. Rhonda's our niece. And she is someone whose whole job is about taking very, very complex things and breaking them down into something that's more manageable, more approachable, and then keeping things on track to keep in this particular case, to keep the sale progressing, to keep the thing moving forward. And so I'm not at all surprised that she feels this strongly about her ability to do that. And by the way, notice she also indicated that the size of the activity was only moderate. And so she has a different perspective around this one than others may have. She does, by the way, consider it to be big. It's big, but it's not all that. It's big, but it's not all that important. Is that what this says? Yes, it's big. It's a red circle, but it's not all that important. Moderately important. That's what the orange letter represents. Wait, no, that's not true.
Oh,
I'm sorry,
yeah.
guys. My mind is just elsewhere today. She thinks it's really big. Right. But she thinks it's only of moderate importance. Yeah, that's what I said.
She's calling it high importance, isn't she?
Well, the importance is a reflection of the eye. So that's the color of the character that's on the inside. So that
Oh,
character,
okay.
yeah.
Gotcha.
But the shape is what the size rating. So large size, moderate importance. Most of you guys consider the importance to be considerably higher than that rating in that. So, I'm not surprised to see this rating, but I would still want to check in with Rhonda just to see if we need to raise the bar on this or if it's happening routinely enough. Remember that power apathy, let's just switch that background for just a moment, that power apathy is a place where things start being stabilized. So you still have enough power going on that you're paying attention to it. It's on your radar, but you know that you got to move on to other things, whether it's because you need to or because you want to, whatever. This particular activity no longer holds the kind of interest for you that it once did. And so it needs to be automated somehow. It needs to be turned into a process, a procedure, a routine. And if it can be automated through true technology, then even better. Let it be automated and kind of go from there. But down here in Power App is where we want to start delegating things. When people are first learning our principles, we talk about delegating to another human. But very often, in fact, I wouldn't be surprised to say more often than not, what we're delegating something to is routine, to our habits, to happenstance. We could be delegating it to some energy that we believe will take care of it all by itself. And certainly as the importance goes down, we even feel less compelled to do that. So I would want to check in, but I'm not surprised to see that particular rating. Okay, so with that, let's look at all y'all. Now you're here as a nice little cluster. You're all inside. Let's go back to that composite change grid. You're all in the driver quadrant. That's excellent. I'm happy if you're a balanced driver, but right now you guys are plotting as a somewhat driven, expressive, amiable driver. So think about those energies. Yeah, you're a driver. You want to make something happen. But that secondary energy, tertiary energy is really that amiable part that's coming into play. And that's being considerate of others, being considerate of yourself when it comes to the oracle of the self application, just thinking a little bit more about self-care, that sort of thing. And you notice you're ever so slightly upgrade as an average right there. And so there is a little bit of a puzzle that you guys are still trying to sort through. And so this is a great energy for figuring something out, but it's being driven more from a place of caring than from that driven driver energy that just wants to make it happen. So Let's look at the activity and you guys tell me, is this position serving you well, or do you really need to move up? By the way, no one gave themselves a 9 for ability. None of y'all gave yourself a 9. Bunch of 8s, 110, but nobody gave themselves a 9. So let's take a look at the activity again to look at the language, staying on track to resolve the overwhelm. Now, what do you think is the dark side of being an amiable, expressive, amiable, or driven, expressive, amiable driver? You know, what's the problem with this amiable energy when it comes to making sure that you get something, you know, done, stay on track, resolve the overwhelm?
You might wait too long to do something about it.
You might wait too long. You might wait too long because the amiable energy is very accommodating. And so if you suddenly feel like you need to do something else, that's going to just take just a few minutes, that's all. Well, what you've probably done is added something to the overwhelm, and it's what's getting the attention right now. So I'll get back to the pile of work I got to get done, but first I need to go and do this or take care of this or help such and such or whatever. And so this is a place where you can end up postponing getting something done. This is a place where creative avoidance is going to take the form of helping yourself or others do other things. Can you guys feel that why that energy would lead to those kinds of things creeping into the mix?
Sure.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And so, what do you think you need to do if you really want to take care of that overwhelm once and for all?
Driven.
You need to move, but you don't have far to move. I just want you to be a solid driver right there, where it's kind of like, no, I understand the other energies, and that's all fine, but I'm just going to move forward as a balanced driver. And that means that while I understand there are other things that I could do or should do for myself and others, for just a moment, I need that extra driver dose to come in to just say, those things can wait. What we need to do is focus on this. So, would you rather be uncomfortable as a stepping stone to becoming comfortable, or just stay uncomfortable for the rest of your life? You know what I'm saying? That's what it's really all about. So, yeah. Okay. Thoughts, comments about this particular activity? Nope.
Good.
All right. Let's take the next one then. Preventing overwhelm from ever occurring again. Now, there should be a debate about where this activity would ideally plot. And so let's first of all choose all y'all. I'm saying the ideal location is really an 8-8, but I could build a case for 9-9. I could build a case for 10-10. So can you guys kind of feel why there's a range of possibilities in the desired location when it comes to preventing overwhelm from occurring again?
Well, you might have to really drive yourself
Yeah, you might.
to overcome it, you know, to stay focused on it. But that was the previous one.
Right, but you're absolutely right. I might very well need to be a 10-10 if I'm going to stop that overwhelm from occurring again, because what's that 10-10 energy all about? What role is it serving in your reality? That's your guardian. That's the one who is protecting the boundaries. That's the one who says, I have to make sure that X doesn't come through the wall, you know, that this is what we're doing. And so if I've got to really be that driven driver and be carrying myself and presenting myself the way a driven driver would when it comes to preventing overwhelm from occurring again, then so be it. But hopefully that's not where I always have to be energetically to prevent the overwhelm from occurring again. So let's play with this for just a few minutes. If you were at 10-10 You were this far out grid when it comes to protecting yourself. So technically you would be an amiable driven driver as far as the energy goes. We want to switch our backgrounds so you guys can see the energies. Again, I hope that by the time you look at enough of these, you actually are able to focus in on the layer we're talking about, even when you're looking at the composite diagram. But you might need to be out here. Why would you need to be that far out grid, and what kind of behaviors might you need to exhibit in order to stop that overwhelm from occurring again if you're this far
Well,
out?
you have to be very vigilant and diligent, and
Yeah,
you have to
vigilant.
and identify in yourself what it is that excites you about taking on things that might just tip you over, but maybe I can do it.
Yep. You're absolutely right. This is about boundaries and honoring those boundaries, or even at this particular energy, it might even be more about enforcing those boundaries, saying no, recognizing what your actual role is and all the stuff that ends up on your plate, and deciding that that's going to be different. If you need to do that, then by all means, I would say to you, if I was working with you individually, that's where you need to be. And that's where I'm going to help you be so that you can stop this from ever happening again. Now, let's say that you have had that experience, you've learned what you need to learn. What might you need to do on an ongoing basis to sustain the overwhelm, to sustain the prevention of the overwhelm from occurring again, the routine, if you will?
Yeah, to me,
Evaluate.
that's more of an analytical kind of energy where you might set up protocols
Yep.
and,
Say,
you know,
So
schedule.
maybe you'll be down here as an analytical driver because you want the systems to kind of prevent the overwhelm. Okay, Anja, what were you saying?
Evaluate, just constantly be evaluating where you are, what you've got, why something might draw you.
And what
Evaluate
are its
why you
merits?
allow it.
Because, we all live in a real world. There are going to be things that find us that we're going to say, yeah, that warrants my attention. But your word is absolutely right. We always have to be evaluating, analyzing. I mean, that's the analytical driver energy. And so, yeah, so you might want to do that. Or maybe I say, if you really get good at stopping overwhelm from knocking on your door, or allowing overwhelm to build in your life, why am I saying that 8-8 is really the great spot to be? So now you'd be a driven, amiable driver when it comes to, those boundaries. What are my exact words?
It
Prevent.
seems,
Yeah.
yeah, it seems as though you're not putting the pressure on yourself to be so driven that everything else has to go
Yeah.
by the
And
byway.
and I'll just change one word. It's kind of like you kind of are, oh, what's my word? You've established this kind of mindset around preventing the overwhelm, and you've exercised it enough that you can now say no in a loving sort of way, or a caring kind of way, a respectful kind of way, and that's all that. So I'd love to think that at a certain point you can achieve that, but along the way you may have to be out here as an amiable driven driver, or an analytical driver, or a balanced driver, so you can kind of earn that, what do I say? Earn that position on that. T, is that where you were going?
Well, yeah, I do. The reason I'm up and expressive is that I'm still trying to find my voice to saying no to things, even
Ah,
though I learned how to say no from my mother.
yeah.
But
Well,
I'm still challenged by that.
right. In fact, if you look up, so T would then be I. So I is plotting right now as an amiable, expressive driver. So there's a whole lot of that amiable and expressive energy coming into play. And that's about being thoughtful around something. That's about wanting to explore some options, learn some things. Obviously, you feel there's a puzzle to be sorted out, or some sort of system to be looked into. But that energy is really good. You have more attention around it than perhaps we would say in the long run you'd want to hold. But I think that's a fine thing, that you're always looking at it from a humanitarian sort of a perspective. Does that describe?
humanitarian.
Yeah.
More logical than anything, if you can believe it. But
Oh,
I'm just trying to find my voice
all right.
and to
Well,
be nice about it.
oh, okay. I'm hearing multiple activities, so that's good. Is this more about being nice about it or finding your voice?
Well, I think it's finding my voice.
All right, so let's think about when it comes to finding your voice, does that what's the primary energy? Would that be the driver, amiable, analytical, or expressive? What energy would best serve you finding your voice?
That's
Expressive.
isn't it?
Well, I think it's definitely driver is the primary energy because finding,
Yeah.
it's like you're saying, like, no, this is an action that I want to actually take and check off the list, get it all done. And so that we know it's the primary driver energy. So finding my voice, if I've got an expressive energy, I'm coming at it from a more holistic, imaginative, creative kind of a place. But I would also say I could probably find my voice if I'm an analytical energy, but then maybe it's more about finding the best voice for this particular message at this particular time. So what do you feel the more expressive around finding that voice or more analytical around it?
That's,
Probably analytical.
Okay, in which case I would say rather than being here, maybe we shift you down just to this one little point right here, which would make you an analytical expressive driver as opposed to an amiable expressive driver.
Yeah.
So yeah. So again, and ultimately, by the way, I just want to lower her 2 points, and so because really it's all about T. Oh wait, but even with T, it's all about both T's. So here you go. So yeah. Yeah. So I can understand that particular plotting, but you're plotting about finding your voice as opposed to the activity as stated, preventing overwhelm. And so, and I've mentioned this before for everyone, very, very often, particularly for those of you who are using these with other individuals, there is a phenomenon that occurs we call tension override. So what happens is that someone looks at the activity as we've stated it, and then they start processing it. And at a certain point, they might end up answering it based on that processing. So it led them to another thought that ends up being a different activity, but for whatever reason, that's when they're based on. So we often have to say, I have to double check, did you answer based on the activity as stated, or did something else kind of come along and take precedent? Obviously it was stimulated by the activity that we stated, but you end up adding a new activity. So that may very well be what was going on there. T, thoughts about that?
The only thing I was thinking of is if I'm going to prevent it, I have to find my voice to be able to say no.
I would
And
agree.
okay, and so it's already putting a solution to the prevention.
That's right. And so let's talk a little bit about that because, again, particularly for those who are here because of the oracle of the self, you need to do this for yourself as well. And so if you notice that some sort of an override has occurred, you've answered a different activity than the one stated, then go to that activity and ask yourself, if this was the only thing I was focused on right now, what are all the things that would come as necessary parts of preventing overwhelm from occurring again? And as T just indicated, finding your voice could certainly be one of those activities. But I could also say identifying how you got overwhelmed to begin with, identifying who the people were that were involved in the overwhelm, who crosses your boundaries. There's I could build a whole activity list around just this one activity. In fact, you could do it on any of them, but we're talking about this one. And so I could certainly easily see how the activity that T actually answered based upon would be on that list. And so, what do you do in that particular case? I think it's an interesting thing to say, all right, T, let's go back to the activity as stated. And I'd like you to do your ratings there again. So, when it comes to preventing overwhelm from occurring again, how do you rate your overall ability to make that happen?
Um, I would say probably ability, probably a 9.
A 9, great. And how challenging do you think it'll be for that activity as stated, preventing the overwhelm from occurring again?
Probably around a 10.
A 10. Okay, so if we go to 9 and 10, I'd like you to notice she's just 2 steps away from where she is to begin with. And so the overall energy, it's still going to be an expressive driver, but particularly more driven. And that tells me that overall, she's going to be a very good defender of the realm. You know, she's going to be very aware of what's going on, but ultimately, she's self-identified that one of the skills that she would want to hone or just, finalize, whatever it is this idea about finding the voice of saying no, for saying no. Does that feel right or useful, T, or anybody?
It feels better, actually. You're right about putting other things inside that one activity,
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
and and I actually had answered everything once before, but lost it. So I kept thinking, what did I do before? And then I thought, oh, you must have been overwhelmed. So let's.
Yeah, there you go. So, but it's all good. And that's what we want to do. Whenever we are looking at a change grid, remember, this is a dynamic tool. It's nothing that's etched in stone. So I would want to just go back and visit. So let's say that I was coaching T on this and I saw this and I saw that she was reporting the level of challenge as being a 10, where we really are. I go like, well, T, what makes that feel so challenging to you? And she would have revealed, I haven't found my voice. Okay. So we end up having the same discussion just based on the questions that we ask. You guys for the Oracle itself need to get good at asking yourself questions. So the better questions you ask yourself about the why, the how did I get here, the what am I really saying here? And, and again, it's always fun to just go, did I answer based on the activity as stated, or did I add one? One of the features of the ChangeWorks system, if we were doing this as an individual profile instead of as a group profile, is we can allow the respondent to add more activities as they go. And so that's a great thing we use when we're actually coaching at the individual level. But for the group, you got to keep things more generic so we can have some group results to look at. Okay, so the rest of all y'all are in a very close space. I'm not worried about it at all. But you do need to make sure that you recognize when the overwhelm is starting, even at its earliest stage, so you can prevent it from occurring. Let me also point out, let's go to balance for just a second. Yeah, keep in mind that where I've put you as the ideal location is right on the edge of the green circle. And so this is where you're basically saying, in order for me to stop that from happening, I need to be ready to step outside where life is lived. I may need to do something. So if I can accomplish it right here, excellent. Didn't let a bunch of nonsense into my world. That's all good. That's all good. Okay, questions, comments before we move on?
Nope.
All right, let's take a look then at activity number 8. Identifying the underlying reasons I'm susceptible to overwhelm. Now, not surprisingly, I said this is going to work best at a certain energy. So what energy do you think is most useful when it comes to, switch to the composite, when it comes to identifying the underlying reasons I'm susceptible to overwhelm? So driver energy for sure, because we want to do this. It's a task to be accomplished. What kind of driver is going to be doing the best job of identifying the underlying reasons I'm susceptible to overwhelm?
Analytical.
The analytical. The moment you see words like identifying and underlying, you're asking someone to do an evaluation, to scrutinize something, figure out what's going on. And that's what we're trying to do here. Now, of all the activities we've seen so far, the scatter pattern in this one is the most exploded, if you will. Usually you guys are concentrated a little bit more as a cluster, but I've got people over here, down here, over here. If I was doing this more as a classroom kind of a program, I would want to talk to maybe AH, you guys are so close to where it is, and have you describe for us how you go about doing this. How do you go about, or how did you go about identifying the underlying reasons that you're susceptible to overwhelm? So can you explain to us what this puzzle, what's this question we're trying to sort out? Because individual D seems to have figured it out. An ability of an 8 against a perceived challenge of a 1, not very big, only moderately big, moderately important. Can you guys feel that the difference in energy that Rhonda feels around this activity compared to most of you guys? For some reason, she's going like, oh no, when it comes to identifying why I'm overwhelmed and blah, blah, blah. Oh no, I got a solid ability to do it. It's not all that difficult.
Makes me think she's gone through something that really made her aware and Teflon coated herself against
Yep.
it. And she
Yep,
got
yep,
to a
yep.
spot where it was tough.
Yeah, well, and if you look at Rhonda was raised by a super mom and has now achieved a state in life where she makes her mom's super mom behavior look like a beginner.
Good for her.
Rhonda is not only works full time, and has a very significant management position inside of the company she works for. She is also a strict vegan. And her son, our nephew, Justin, who we might have spoken of before, ended up with a profound nut allergy. And so she had to be really super vigilant about everything. He was also sensitive to some other sorts of things. And so she's the kind of household where every cleaning product is organic and every meal has been carefully thought through, and she doesn't throw something together. This gal cooks really amazing vegan food. You wouldn't even know it's vegan while you were eating at her place. And so by the time you put together full-time job, full-time mom, what do you call it? Yeah, he's a preteen. I think he's 12 years old now. Brilliant kid. And they've systematically figured out how to help him conquer his peanut allergy. Have you guys heard about how they desensitize a kid for this?
No.
Oh,
Make
they
him
bring,
eat peanuts.
what's that?
Make him eat peanuts.
Yeah, but he has to have one peanut a day for the rest of his life.
Yep.
So that's at one, but it's like a pill. You got to take one peanut a day for the rest of your life. But for a while, it was, I mean, for years, we knew he was one peanut away from anaphylactic shock. So it was really a very serious kind of thing. So my point is, to Anja, I think, observation, she's become so conditioned to it that it feels like another day to her. I would say to you, though, that this is not where the work is being done. And so I would want to check in with a client who's plotting here and say, for you to believe your ability is this high, I should be able to test you and figure out, do you really have this level of ability? Remember, ability is concrete stuff, knowledge, skill, experience. So I may very well need to come along and just say, are you sure? Because I notice you're not giving yourself a 9, a 10, or an 11. I'd like you to be a 10. So there is some ability I'd like to see go up, but there's no reason why anyone would put any energy into boosting their ability if they're this far down in apathy. I mean, she's not in the danger zone, but good grief, look where she's at. And so, and part of my concern would be if you are this far down grid, remember when you learned about the sense of control that the 5 different levels of tension experience? Let me change the background for a section. We can review that real quick. Stress is feeling 3 words. So when it comes to their relationship with control, stress is feeling what? Stress is feeling out
Out of control.
out of control. People in power stress are seizing control. People in power are in control. People in power apathy assume they're in control, an assumption of control. And in apathy, it is an, anyone remember the word?
Illusion.
Illusion of control. And
Huh.
so we need to constantly check in with people who are plotting with mission critical activities down in apathy, where they think they are the most unconscious competent there ever was. Did they notice that the world kept changing? Are they noticing that things are sneaking in other ways? So when it comes to identifying the underlying reasons I'm susceptible to overwhelm, might there not be new ones that are appearing, or might I be being a bit less vigilant if I'm this far down grid? And I'm emphasizing that, by the way. I'm going to call her as soon as this is over, because it's like, Rhonda, you said it's only moderately important and it's moderately incising. You're down in apathy about it. Are you paying attention to this? Because this also involves self-care issues that are coming into to play. So, I mean, she's done it for a long time, so I know she can handle the overwhelm, but at what point does that become problematic in and of itself? Yeah. Thoughts about that, everybody?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I got a few other floaters hither and thither around there, but again, most of you are in power around it. Power is where we want you to be, and you're drivers around it. Am I right? Yeah, almost all of you are in power. And you're out grid, and so you've got that driver energy. Few little floaters. So whenever we have a group training going on, it's nice at the tabletop to be able to say to people, those who are reporting a higher level of ability or a lower perceived level of challenge, share with everyone else what your story is. How did you come to achieve this level of whatever's going on? Like whoever G is, who's G? Oh, Linda says it's not a big task at all. She gave it a green circle. So did Kathy. A green circle. It's not a big task to do this. Okay, you guys with me? Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
But again, with
Don't be
exception
so
of
excited.
yeah, well, with the exception of two of you, you're reporting a level of ability that is less than ideal. And so if you could spend a little bit more time, or we could talk about a little bit more time about what are some of the other things you might want to be looking at to look at underlying reasons you're susceptible to overwhelm. For example, I'll give you one interesting one, in my opinion, at least interesting. Those who have studied self-hypnosis, oh, Edie's on the call. She can certainly um, support this or challenge if she wants to. But the human mind is only capable of consciously juggling a finite number of pieces of information at once. And the thought has always been that the average human can handle 7 plus or minus 2 pieces of information or tasks, jobs, whatever it is that need to be done mentally simultaneously at once. Anything that exceeds that capacity is going to go directly into your subconscious mind. And so you can bypass the conscious mind altogether if I can keep your these 7 chunks occupied with things. So if I said to you, and this is something that comes from neuro-linguistic program, think about all of the times you've had an argument with people and the people you've had the greatest arguments with, and the last time you had an argument with them and what the argument was about. And then think about how it's affecting your physicality, how it's actually impacting the quality of your life. And, it's good then to think about how does it affect other people that are happening around you. I just gave you 6 or 7 puzzle questions. And each one of those questions is occupying one of those conscious availability blocks. And once those things are full, you'd be surprised what it is that can be implanted into your subconscious. So, Edie, you want to say anything at all about how the mind can only handle so much consciously, and the rest gets bypassed, and that's part of hypnosis? Or yeah,
I don't understand that.
what's that? That
What hypnosis is.
Well, hypnosis is basically a state where things can be explored in your subconscious mind, and or on the dark side of things, be implanted. in your subconscious mind. That's why the hypnosis shows are always planting sort of silly suggestions about people acting like animals and all that. And you do wonder, yeah, oh, Edie just said that she can't unmute, but yes. So she agrees with what I'm saying. But yeah, it's if I can get you to do certain things like watch the thing going back and forth and pay attention to your breathing and clear your mind. These are all tasks I'm giving you to do. The human mind can only handle a certain number of tasks simultaneously before it zones out. Or gets so occupied, other things can happen around it. You guys see lots of examples in this. Anytime you're watching shows about human perception, or if you watch that series about the brain, and one of the things they do a lot, they tell you that they want you to watch a video and pay very close attention to multiple things. They'll tell you,
Oh,
watch,
yeah.
watch this. And then after you've watched the whole thing, the person comes to you and says, did you notice the bear that walked across the background? And people go like, what bear? And then you watch it again, you go, no, lo and behold, there was a bear, not hidden, not in any way. A bear walks right through the background, or a clown walks by, or whatever. They're just saying that because of one of the biases that we've been conditioned with, and one of the limitations of conscious involvement in life, the more I tell you to pay attention to, the more I'm also telling you, ignore everything else. It won't go, you won't notice it. Mind you, your subconscious mind may very well have noticed it. And this is where we get into things like subliminal advertising, subliminal suggestion, those sorts of things. And so this stuff has been studied forever and then some, but it's all about, can I fill your mind with busy work? Because the more I can get you to focus on stuff, doesn't matter if it's important or not important, whatever, the less you're going to notice me sneaking in and doing other things to what's going on in your world. Suggestions, etc. Yep.
I always thought those hypnosis shows were sort of like, I don't know if you watched the show The Mentalist, but I always
yeah.
thought those were a sort of like magic show.
Well, some of them are magic shows, and they are set up as purely entertainment. They might even have plants in the audience that they're bringing up to do this sort of stuff. There's also a bias humans exhibit frequently about not wanting to rock the boat. So you'll do things because you don't want to embarrass yourself or others. And so
Right,
you
you
go
want-
along with the joke.
Hypnotized. You want to be. So
You
go
want to be hypnotized.
in a submission from the person.
That's right. And that's why at the early stage, when they bring up the 24 people on stage, they begin to immediately dismiss people, because they can tell just by looking at you if you're up there to have a good time, or if you're up there because you're skeptical. They get rid of the skeptics right away. So
Right.
the people that you're left with by the time you whittle the group down are people who are willing to play the game, but the truth is that maybe, just maybe, one of them is actually going to end up truly hypnotized. Some people are very susceptible to it. And that, oh, Edie is saying, Edie, you're sitting it only to me instead of everybody. She goes, this is also why phone numbers are just 7 digits. And why we remember the top 7 rental cars. So, yeah, and she goes, right. So she goes, entertainment is about selection, but 86% of the people she sees for smoking cessation quit after 1 session. So,
hypnotizes them?
what's that? Oh
She
yeah, Edie is a
hypnotizes them?
master hypnotist, hypnotherapist. Yeah, Edie, you're unmuted, so I think you're on a device that isn't allowing you to speak, but you're wide open on our end of things. So yeah, no, we can't hear you there. Okay, anyway, and anytime you guys want, if you really want to have Edie give you the ins and outs of the reality of hypnosis versus the entertainment industry's idea of hypnosis, she can certainly do that. You do spend a great deal of your day, by the way, in a self-hypnotized state. So daydreaming is hypnosis. You just drifted into it. And that, so we spend a lot of time not consciously participating in the world around us. Okay, anyway, but identifying the underlying reasons is our topic at hand. And so you guys just need to look a little bit more about what are those underlying reasons. Now, the reason why I told you about the 7 plus or minus 2 chunks of information is because if you're exposed to social media, everything that you see, everything that you hear, everything that you read is occupying a block. of your conscious mind. And then after those things are blocked, they can start giving you other suggestions, using certain words, emphasized in certain ways. We can talk to you all about the marking of certain sounds that will end up creating a sentence in your head when the subconscious mind restores it. So this has all been really researched and figured out, but we can certainly do a deep dive into it if you guys would like. Bottom line is that you guys may not realize how many messages are entering your subconscious mind every single day because manipulators are deliberately, consciously trying to fill your blocks with extraneous stuff just to keep you busy. Yep.
Isn't that the definition of subconscious?
Well, right. It's actually happening below your consciousness.
You're not aware of it.
But
Yeah.
your conscious mind is your protection. And if they can do something to distract all the guards of your mind, well, guess what? You become a totally wide open person for programming. And if you guys become a student of any sorts of manipulative behaviors and how it gets played out, you'd be quite surprised to see how frequently these things are done. And there's this thought that people aren't doing it in a calculated kind of way. Yes, they are. Yes, they are. Yep. Yours is 1 million times more powerful. Can't hear. Okay. All right. Anyway, yeah. So let's take a look at another activity. Any other thoughts about this, or you guys want to go through hypnotherapy training? We can do that. All right. Let's be mindful. Would you? I mean, it is a fun kind of thing. I mean, obviously, from the Oracle of Self perspective, self-hypnosis is also a way to get to the exact center of the change grid. Keep in mind that how a lot of people end up at the center of the change grid is by doing things like prayer, meditation, mindfulness. Some forms of meditation are about emptying the mind altogether. So that you can have a relationship with your subconscious and just have that clear kind of thing. But you're also in an isolated environment where stuff can't really get in. A lot of times, the procedures that people or the things people do to find this released sort of state is about occupying the mind. So you think about whirling dervishes. Whirling dervishes are whirling. And so there's stuff that your mind has to pay attention to while you're doing all this. But why are they doing it? Because by keeping their conscious mind full, they are able to access their subconscious mind. And for whatever reason they want to. So some people are praying about all kinds of things for all kinds of people, or are envisioning this and manifesting that. There's all kinds of things that people do to achieve the centered state. A lot of them have to do with just occupying the human mind, the conscious mind. Okay, thoughts about that? Let's see. Edie chatted something over to everyone. I know it's hard to believe, but Bruce Lipton, etc., the biology of belief, are now saying it's 1,000,000 times more powerful. Blows my mind too. Had a chronic pain person who reduced pain 75% after sessions. Depression, miraculous results. Yeah, and so there's a lot of use, a lot of really successful applications of hypnotherapy. Okay, anyway, let's take a look at the next activity. And that one will be enforcing strict boundaries. Now, I'm using the words enforce strict boundaries. Are you at all surprised to find out that the ideal location for this activity? Oh, sorry, can't do that. Can't do two things. Enforcing strict boundaries. You need to be out grid. You need to be in that guardian of your mind kind of place to do this particular activity. And most of you are there. Some of you are reporting a lower level of ability to do that. And so whenever the ability is lower than the challenge, or the ideal level, one of the things we want to do is look at, is this an issue of training? Is this something that we can educate around? So enforcing strict boundaries regarding my time. Well, there's an assumption being made in this statement altogether. You want to tell me, what do you think the big assumption is in enforcing strict boundaries?
That you understand.
That you have the boundaries.
That you have the boundaries. It also implies that not only do you have boundaries, you made some sort of decision that that boundary was important. So you've got strict boundaries. And now you got to enforce these kinds of things. And so this is really all about you becoming the guardian of yourself. F. Sally is reporting a very high level of challenge around it, and a significantly lower level ability than we would want. So does Rhonda, doesn't have as much challenge, but she doesn't even shows the ability. And so there's some training we could do here for B and E and G, to kind of do that. But most of you guys are right out there where you need to be. So if enforcing a strict boundary when it comes to others is really easy. What word is the only word you really need to know in order to enforce strict boundaries regarding your time and attention with other people?
No.
You just got to say no.
No.
No. Are you obligated to provide an explanation?
No.
No.
No. Right. So should you feel bad about yourself for enforcing
No.
boundaries? No. Exactly. So no is the answer. So, but
No.
what do you do when it's yourself? And a lot of the stuff you're piling up on your plate is coming from you. How do you learn to tell yourself no? Because now it feels like you're depriving yourself of some sort of treat or option or experience or whatever. How do you actually do that? And this is why a lot of people don't stick with whatever their process is for reaching their goals. They let themselves off the hook. So they're not enforcing those strict boundaries. So yeah. So what do you guys think about that? Anyone guilty of not enforcing strict boundaries when it comes to your self, your self thinking?
Yeah,
So,
been, but I'm not.
Yeah.
I think so. I'm easy with no.
yeah.
you are.
Yeah, and so this is it. It's easy to say no to other people. Are you just as good at saying no to yourself? Now, I've certainly met some people that are exceptional at it.
Oh, well, you had to sneak that in, didn't you?
What's that? I did. I
Damn
did.
it.
Yeah. I just had to do it gracefully though, so no one would pick up on the message. So anyway, um, you know, it really is a big deal though. It really is a big deal when you kind of go that the biggest reason why you guys aren't achieving your goals is in the mirror. It's about making a choice and being consistent and saying no to things and for yourself. It's much more difficult to say no to yourself than it is to say no to other people. I have met some people that are very good at it. If you know people who really are naturally disciplined, I mean, my trainer, he's a competitive bodybuilder and he's been this way his whole life. This man has no hesitation to say no to certain things that other people might want him to eat or might want him to do or whatever the case may be. He's all about consistency. Oh, well, good for him. I wish I was able to take a consistency pill, but that's not me. And so I would think that there's a lot of people who struggle with it. In fact, if we look at things energetically, for a moment, think about personality typing. Certain personalities, I'm sure, have got a lot more challenge than others. I just want to change to the energies. Anyone, oh, sorry. Enforcing strict boundaries, view the change grid. Yeah, energy. Someone who's a driver by personality is certainly more likely to stick with things than someone who is an expressive. Expressives are the least likely to stick with things. Amiables are likely to sacrifice their own agenda for other people's agendas, and analyticals have really no interest in anybody's agenda, even their own.
Yeah.
So they just don't care. So you got to have that driver energy if you're really going to, what's this activity say, enforce strict boundaries regarding your time and attention. That's why this needs to be where it is.
So if I had to consider doing that to myself, like you said, I would be in a different place on that grid.
Yeah, do tell us.
That's about all I'm going to say.
Okay. All right. Would you be further down grid or
You
further
said
up
no.
grid?
Say no.
Where would you
No, thank you.
Okay, there you go. Just
No.
say no. There it is. It's a test. That's all right.
I
I've
have to
created
think about it.
I've created a monster. Do think about it. That's gonna be a wonderful thing to do. So again, this is the challenging part, enforcing strict boundaries. Okay, and I'll throw this to Tom and Anja okay. Anja, Tom taught dance, or they were very active dance community. Anja did, I don't know how many lessons every single week for how many years, but it's got to be in, she's up to thousands and thousands of lessons that she's given, and Tom's been there for most of them, right? Am I correct, guys? How many of the dancers that have come to you and paid you good money and wouldn't do the homework, wouldn't do the practice?
Ah,
Well, Tom wasn't there at the lessons, but
I was there for a number of them.
yeah, I'm giving you.
they
if,
got more
if I
advanced.
had
I
a,
could not pull him down unless they were advanced.
yeah,
Of course.
but if I had $1 for every time I heard Anja say, "Oh, I'm glad you didn't practice this week, because now I can make twice as much teaching
Well,
you the same
exactly.
lesson."
We'll do it again.
Actually, that's why I exited Tom from many of my lessons, because he would point that out. And I would rather they not practice something wrong or get
Right.
discouraged because they didn't practice.
No, you're
Just
correct.
come and do what you can. Some
correct.
needed to be pushed, some did not. Some needed to be pushed to come.
And
And
some came to you because they liked spending time with you and they were doing something fun and they were learning something, but they were not
Right.
the most serious of your students.
Right, exactly. And Tom comes
right.
down, what? I'm like, Tom, look what he's doing. Look at this. Well, this is wrong. And this, but he did, well, all right, Tim, go back upstairs. Cause
Right. But if he goes to a wedding, can he go out on the dance floor and look
they're all gonna ask him if he's a teacher, for God's sake. He's
well,
gonna
you
be
know what
the
exactly.
king.
There you
Yeah,
All right. And so this is the thing about in what? What? All right. So okay. Now that gets us to the next activity very quickly, being open and honest about not wanting to do certain things. This again is all about saying no to things. And so if I look at everybody for this particular activity,
Boy,
everyone's further up grid than the general plotting was last time around. See how both
Mhm.
things moved up grid. Now, the ideal location is up grid as well. In this particular case, what you want to do for this activity, being open and honest about not wanting to do certain things. Being open and honest is an expressive kind of thing. So you're being open, you're being honest. No is what an analytical driver would say, or a driven driver, just no, 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 no. Where the expressive driver is going to be a little bit more perhaps diplomatic about it, a little bit more understanding of how it affects other people. You're a little more sympathetic, things like that. And that's why I said it's not bad to have that little bit of energy in there, to that expressive energy. But it's not an easy task to do, but it's a task that needs to be done. You guys are all around it. Who's I? T's doing really well with it. T, you're in the perfect spot for that one. So being open and honest about not wanting to do certain tasks. That certainly makes enforcing strict boundaries that much easier. All right, and so let's take a look at the last one here, and that is recognizing signs of being overwhelmed in others. Let us see where you guys plotted for that one. Well, it's interesting to me what a solid level of ability you guys are all reporting when it comes to recognizing overwhelm in others. If we go back for a moment to activity number 1, can you guys take a little snapshot real quick of what this looks like in your head? Just kind of see how they're all concentrated here. If I go now to recognizing the signs in yourself, what does that one look like? I hope it looks similar. We have a little bit more of a spread, but
you
still, I'm
clicked the
seeing.
wrong one, I think.
Did I? No.
Yeah, go back. Go
What
back.
activity did I choose? Recognizing signs of being overwhelmed in myself.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
the one you wanted?
Yeah, that's what I wanted.
Okay.
So you
oh,
guys,
well, then you did just fine.
yeah, you guys are saying that you're good at that one too.
That
So-
must have been 8 things hitting my brain.
well,
was
it
it.
happens all the time. Happens all the time. Think about it. So I just gave you one. Now, if we look at everybody else, you guys can see we're plotting more as a group here.
Well,
And
sure, we can recognize it in other people. We're so empathetic toward it.
well, yeah, well, and look at it, because right now you guys are plotting with a little bit more of an amiable energy, relatively speaking. And so we're just saying that this is a matter of fact kind of thing that you ultimately need to be watching for. So just like we've been taught protocols about how to notice if someone's having a heart attack, or how if they're having this issue and they feel a migraine coming on. There's a lot of conditions that humans experience that there are early warning signs. And if we can detect these early warning signs, we might be able to intervene and stop whatever the outcome is from happening. So if you can see it in yourself, you should be able to see it in others. If you see it in others, you should be able to see it in yourself, but that is more difficult. This idea about being self-aware, recognizing these kinds of things of your own life, that's where the challenge really is. So yeah. Okay. Anyway, so bottom line, when it comes to overcoming overwhelm, you guys overall have not plotted in problematic locations as a group. But in all of the activities we've looked at, there is room for some sort of growth. And so what I thought I would do, because I'd like these things to be change grids or explorations of the month, I'd like to do it so that on the first session of it, we talk about what this life situation really is, so people are clear about it. And we take a look at the activity list so people know what it is that's being asked. So that's session one. Then a couple of sessions to go through the results like we've done now. But this next session has to be the recommendations. What's the advice? What's the remedy for all of these? And so next time we're together, we're going to look at several of these. Some I think are close enough, don't require a lot of intervention. But some of them I think we really want to get into some nuts and bolts, things that you can do to help yourself get on track and stay on track on this particular set of activities. I know we've done a little bit of that. I'd like to do a session that focuses on that. So thoughts about that for our next call?
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
All
that
right,
does
so
sound good.
Thank you.
So just so you guys are reminded, next week, Linda and I are on a cruise. However, Monday, we are in San Francisco. If the weather is decent, we want to go to the botanical garden. If the weather isn't decent, I'm staying on board. And if I'm staying on board, I might as well do our call. So what I'm going to do is watch the weather reports, obviously the predictions, forecasts. And by Saturday, I will send you guys all a little update to let you know whether Monday's call is happening or not. So at this point, assume that it is. And I'm saying that because of all the severe weather that part of the country is getting. I'll bet the seas are going to be rough, and I'll bet the weather's going to be rainy. So anything better than that, I'll be a happy cruiser. So, but yeah, if we're not going to the botanical garden, then I would be very happy to just do our call. I'm paying for the internet, I might as well. Okay, all right. So with that, thank you all very much for joining in. Take care, everybody. Bye.
Thank you, T.
Cheers.
Have a good day, everybody.
Thanks. Bye-bye.